Welcome back, everybody. It is March 1st of 2024, and this is episode 63 of What is on My Desk. So here we are back for another one of my monthly desk updates, and we'll get swung over here in a couple of minutes. I've got progress on the kits to show you, really good progress on the kits to show you, and a couple of new things. I think actually just one new model to show you, and a book. I believe it's a model and a book. So we'll get over here soon, take a look at that progress. And as always, before we jump into the video, I just want to say thank you for everybody who is out there watching. If you haven't yet, down below, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Like and subscribe will help the algorithm, and the notification bell will let you guys know when I release new content. So all of that is a bonus to me, and as always, if you don't like what you're watching, then give me that thumbs down. Leave me a comment, let me know what you didn't like about it, what you think I should change, and I'll do my best to try to make this channel better. Now, after all of that rambling, and before we jump too far into this video, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. As promised last month, I have some new products to show you in this month's edition of What's on My Desk, and it was a complete impulse buy. Yeah, it is a heavy box. This, the HK Models B17F Flying Fortress in 1/48 scale. Now, bit of a backstory on this. I have another F. I have the Revell F in the closet. I had planned to build that up as knockout dropper using the Zot's Heavenly Bodies decals. Plans have changed slightly on that. You'll see some more about that coming up in the near future. But regardless of what those plans are, it means I would not have an F model to build, and I really wanted an F model to complement the other kits I have. So I decided to bite the bullet and pick one of these up. Now, they're not very cheap. They are pretty expensive in the sense of what a 1/48 scale bomber goes for, but it is an amazing kit. So we'll take a quick look at it. I'm just going to, I'm using a chair I have behind me here as a bit of an extra work surface because I don't have a lot of space on the desk. So start off on the box art, and again, beautiful high gloss art of Memphis Belle. You do get two schemes in this, including Memphis Belle. We'll take a look at those at the end. The sides both include the same art. On this side, you get to see the two included schemes, and on this side, your usual legalese, as well as some of the really nice CAD look at the kits. Now, I have seen a lot of people who kind of complain about the CAD views, that they're not actual plastic, and it's only the CAD. You know, it is what it is. It's not horrible, but it would be nice sometimes to get some views of the actual plastic, but at least you get a good idea of what is included in the kit detail-wise. So we'll go through and take a quick look at some of the sprues. There's a lot of them in here. Just to give you an example, or a good overview, the box comes absolutely packed. And I mean, it's not a tiny box. It's a good size box, and it is packed with stuff. So we'll start looking at, I'm not gonna lie, I've had this open already and I've already gone through it and looked at it. So I kind of put things back in the wrong order, so things don't come out at the right order. But we'll start with the fuselage halves. I have the fuselage halves and the wing halves here, and I'll try to keep things off to the side. So you get the fuselage halves. Each halve comes in its own plastic bag, and it doesn't have a sprue. You can see it's got all the little nubs on it, which is, you know, what they use to pop it out of the mold, but it has no actual sprue of its own, which is kind of nice. It limits the amount of cleanup, and all of the sprue gates, you know what, they're not stapled. The other thing I like, the bags aren't stapled. They're the self-adhesive flap style bag. So it's really easy to reseal the kit parts in there so you don't lose anything. If you take a good look here, I'll zoom. Ooh, that plastic is very nice. Let's take a quick, this is the first time I've actually touched HK plastic before. I've never had one of their kits, and this is an absolute beauty. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in here just a little bit so you can take a look. And I'll show you some of the cool details I'm looking at. So first of all of these little sprue gates, or the push gates, they're connected on, see if I get just the focus here. They're connected on the inside of the kit, not on the upper surface. So just a quick, let it focus. Come on. Just a quick swipe of the blade across the back and a sanding of the mating surface is enough to clean that up, and you're not actually eating into the kit itself. And it's the same along here. You're sanding the mating surface. You're not sanding the finished, can't see anything I'm looking at. In here, it's connected to the mating surface, not the outside plastic. So you're not chewing into plastic. Most other kits would have the attach point on the surface, and you're cleaning up finished plastic, whereas this is mating surface. So it's a lot easier to clean up and worry about getting a good fit when all of this is on surfaces that are really not critical. But yeah, it looks really, really nice. You can even see across the bottom here where it looks like there was a sprue that was cleaned up on the mating surface. So it looks like it was part of a larger sprue that was molded, and they just went along and cut the bottom all off, or it looks like they just folded it and snapped it off. To be honest, it's a pretty rough disconnect of the previous sprue. So luckily, again, it's on the mating surface, and it's relatively, I gotta trim my nails, that's disgusting. Anyways, it's on a relatively easy surface to clean up, and it doesn't mar your finished plastic, but it looks like they just snapped off whatever sprue that was connected to. But no, it's really nice, and you can see by the way it's molded that you only get the core fuselage. You don't get a lot of the extra stuff, things like the tail gunners, the upper fuselage, the nose, all of that is separate pieces. So it allows, sorry for the plastic noise, it allows for a change in the molds later on. It's very easy. For example, this is the F with a stinger, but it's very easy to have a late G with a Cheyenne tail turret, or a different style nose. This one has, you'll see in a little bit, it has two different style nose bits, but you could do an E nose, an F nose, a G nose. You've got all these different abilities to just intersperse what you are doing. And I'm just taking a quick look at the panel lines. I'm just trying to see, this does not have staggered waist guns. Obviously, as an F, it has, I can't put the fuselage together until I clean all this up, but as an F, it's got perfectly, you know what, let me get you out here a little bit. I'll widen you out. It's got the waist gunners are perfectly, like I said, I can't get this together very well with all these sprue connections. The waist gunners are perfectly in line, whereas later versions, this waist gunner here was farther forward, and they were staggered. Actually, I think they were both moved. One was moved aft and one was moved forwards in the later versions to stagger them. But I'm just trying to see if there was any plugs on the inside that would allow that to be moved at a later date, and it doesn't look like there is. So these moldings don't look like they were designed. It's hard to say though. It's potential. There's a weird seam here where these stringers meet at the bottom. So it is potentially possible that this does have a little bit of mold release agent on here. These will need to be washed. There's a bit of mold release agent in some places. Anyways, it's very, very possible that there is going to be a later version that has the staggered waist guns that comes out with just a modified mold, or it might just be a completely different right hand mold that they use, and it isn't a plug mold where they use the same mold and just change the opening. It might be a completely separate right hand side mold that they use. But either way, it's really easy to mix and match parts and get various versions of all of these kits. So the two fuselage halves look very nice. Some real nice positive locating tabs on the horizontal vertical stab to line everything up. There's no sink marks on the outside of the plastic where some of those pinholes are, like where the mounting holes. Sometimes you get sink marks on the other side. There's none of that. The plastic is in really good shape. All the engraved panel lines and engraved rivets and raised detail where there should be raised detail. It's really nice. And interestingly, some of these windows apply from the outside. So it looks like you could put the kit in the window from the outside and clean it up instead of being pushed in from the inside, and it leaves those big, massive gaps around it. I'm impressed. So far, so good. I have to say, I'm pretty happy with that. Again, first time I've ever manhandled some HK plastic, and it's really nice. I haven't played with it yet, so how it, you know, how it cuts, how it sands, how it takes to glue, I don't have those answers yet, but it looks really, really good so far. The wings come packaged like this with the two halves mounted together. Pretty much pinned almost exactly as they would be. It's really nice positive fit. I mean, and look at, there's all this interior strengthening of the wings and everything, and these beautiful mounting pins to ensure alignment. But yeah, those came together. You can almost just press them together and they'll hold their, like, it took quite a bit for it to fall. It didn't just fall apart. So there's really nice positive mounting of everything. You've got your flap detail. There is quite a few push ejector pins on the inside of those flaps, but you're not going to see much if it's sitting on the ground. I'm probably not going to bother cleaning those up. I don't plan to look up inside. But again, you've got engraved lines where you need them, raised panels where you would have raised panels. All of the extra work in here to have all the details with the turbo superchargers and all that other stuff. The openings in the wings are correct for all the intakes and everything. And the one thing I did notice is on the top, it's got the vent for the Tokyo tanks. The Tokyo tanks for the fuel tanks in the outboards of the wings, and they had the overflow vents back here. So that's an interesting fit. And the vents look really nice. They're molded. They're not just indents. They're actual openings. They're thinned appropriately. The plastic is just beautifully paper thin. Oh, I'll zoom you in again here so you can take a look at this. Like when you look at those vents, it's just paper thin. It looks like the real vents in the wings. So yeah, just super nice. Very happy with that. The wingtip lights have a nice indent in them. As I said, there's the vent for the Tokyo tank. All of the little, having trouble focusing here, all the little bits and bobs on the surface. On the bottom, like I said, you've got in the turbo supercharger where it fits in here. In here, all the extra parts that go in. The wheel wells are a separate piece. All those, the vents and the leading edge of the wing, everything is just beautifully molded. The one thing I did want to even check was how it fits together. It's got like a tab lock system on the fuselage, and then the adjoining opening in the wing. I want to see how positive that fit is. Is it something you could assemble? See, it's going to be hard to do without gluing the wings together. I really want to know, is this something you can build and just slide the wing on after the fact and not glue the wing on? Or is it something that really should be glued on for the strength? Yeah, that's a really nice fit. You might get away with not having to glue those wings. I think you'll be able to assemble it, slide the wings on and off at your leisure, which would be nice. I will have to play around with that as I'm building the kit. But at this point, I'm going to put these guys back in the bags, and we'll move on and look at the rest of it. I did not plan to go into that much depth in this video. I will be doing a full review of this kit a little later. I actually plan to do relatively soon, and if it's already released, I'll put it up above. Let me get you back out. If I have released it already, I'll have the link up. I suspect it will be coming out after this video goes up in March. But my plan is to actually do a review of all 4 of my B-17 kits at the same time in one video. That's the Revell F, Monogram G, Pro Modeler G, and then the Hong Kong F. and the Hong Kong F is going to be very close to the Hong Kong G, but that will allow a good wide look at all of the 148 scale B17 kits that are on the market, and allow people to make the decision based off of price point, kit detail, buildability, builder skill, which kit they most want to get. And with Masters of the Year being released, I have a distinct feeling the number of B17 builds are going to go up significantly in the next little while. So I'm not going to open up the rest of the sprues. I'm just going to take a quick look through them, kind of through the bags. Like I said, I will be doing a more detailed look through later on, and you can hop over there, take a look at that if you want to see more. So over here, we've got sprue D. It includes both horizontal stabilizers, Bombay doors, Bombay bits, crew seats, cockpit bulkheads. I think that's a cockpit bulkhead. It might be the rear Bombay bulkhead. You got some more of the pilot seats in here, the Bombay catwalk. This is the radio operator's floor. And then on the flip side, you've got the upper turtle deck, some ball turret parts, radio operator, tail turret floor, ball turret parts, Bombay pieces, cockpit sidewalls. These are your two Bombay bulkheads, cockpit floor. And then this is the waist gunner's floor. And I think that's the top of the Bombay. So all of that's all included on those two sprues. And again, it's really, really beautifully molded. It looks like it's going to be a breeze to put a lot of this together. Tons of detail in here on these, the actuators for all the Bombays and all the oxygen tanks that are included. It's just stuff you don't normally see in a 148th kit. Over here in a separate little baggie is the Stinger tail turret, and that just kind of fits onto the rear of the fuselage after the fact. But again, you got some decent interior detail and all that, so you can see quite a bit when you look in through the windows. It's going to be a weathering dream. The next sprues we're going to look at are these two, sprues F and G. So sprue F includes parts for the wheel wells, the inner engine, turbo superchargers, I think those are the outer and inner turbo supercharger pieces, your main landing gear, more parts for inside the wheel well, your flaps, the wheel well front and back bulkheads. I believe those are more parts of the wheel wells. These are for the props. You've got parts of the main landing gear over here. The APU, not sure what those are. Probably something to do with the little intakes in the wings. And then on sprue G, more of the inner turbo superchargers, all the machine gun bodies, bombs, landing gear bits, tail wheel bits, some doors, the yokes, the cowl flaps, engines, some ammo crates, the tail wheel floor by the it leads out, the tail wheel strut, rear door, seat for something, probably the radio room, some of the smaller antennas and bits and bobs, and some of the machine gun barrels. So all of that's included there. Again, beautifully molded. Engines, to be honest, the engines are a little weak. They're kind of flat and simple. I would expect better. That being said, once they're painted up and weathered, they'll probably look really, really good. Once you get the cowlings and everything on it, I suspect they'll look fine. It's just surprising that they're not a little bit more detailed than what they are. Anyways, overall, looks good. The machine guns look great. Tons of detail on the 50 cals. And the barrels look really nice. All the different lengths of barrels for the different types of guns. The ones that fit through like the nose windows and the whatnot, they've got the little ball to allow the gun to be positioned at any angle they want, which is a nice touch. So that looks really good. We're getting close to the end of the parts, to be honest. Over here, we've got sprue N, 4 props and 4 cowlings. And on the back side here, sprue I. These are some of the mark-specific parts. Where you've got, I guess, no, it's pretty generic. You've got some more machine guns, some ammo chutes or ammo boxes, bomb aimer, panel, the Norden bomb sight, some more ammo boxes, the instrument panel, the nose, floor for where the bomb aimer and the navigator sit, the bulkhead in the nose that leads from the nose back to the cockpit. Don't know what that is. Those might be the floors for the waist gunners. That's a section that goes into the upper turret. You know, you got some fire bottles and stuff. So there's lots of little random bits and pieces in here. But again, like the detail on this is just out of this world. I can't wait to build this thing. Finally, we've got another little section here. Sprue L, J, This one doesn't even have a number on it. Anyways, again, these are some more of the model-specific stuff. This is the Stinger tail gun parts. You've got the top turret parts. The little later top turrets would have different bits and pieces. And on this section, you've got some of the interior pieces. That looks like the Astrodome piece, in case you can want to demount the Astrodome. You've also got the forward gun supports in the nose, the windows. Again, if you have a G model, you probably wouldn't get this because it's a different design. So you got a lot of little extra pieces in here. And then the last pieces of solid plastic is the nose. And these are sent as two halves. As I said, you can see it's the F model, so it's got the windows in it. And yeah, you can see there's a cutout in case you want to do a later version with the Astrodome. It gives you the cutout area to cut out. It gives you the fairing. I'll have to see if the clear pieces is included. But yeah, it gives you that ability if you want to do the Astrodome. But you can see, for example, if you've got an E model, you would have the smaller window instead of a larger window. For the G model, you would have the framed in side guns, and then you could have the provisions for the chin turret. So there's lots of ability to pick and choose what models you want based off of what version you get, which is a nice touch. So again, forward nose. Now we move on to the clear pieces. Again, here you've got some model specific ones. You've got the Stinger tail turret perspex, the two nose perspexes, one with a single machine gun, one with a double machine gun, depending on what version you choose to build. And then you get your standard clear part sprue, which is a little hard to see, and one of my turrets is loose. And it's a little annoying, but you've got all your top turrets, 3 different versions of top turrets actually, which includes the F model as well as the later G models. It's, I guess, like an early, an E. Let me see if I can pick that out. That looks like an E early F, a late F, and a G. So this is common across all the different models. You've got window bits, you've got the canopy, you've got the ball turret, the upper, what do you call it? The radio operators area. And then this side, this one here looks specific to all, generic, I should say. The back side is specific to whatever version you're building because it includes an upper window without a machine gun, which was the F style, whereas this is the later G style with the machine gun hole through the opening. It includes the F style rear windows, the F style cheek windows. Again, one of them is broken off. The Astrodome, both the G style and an F style Astrodome. So lots of cool little pieces in here that you can play with. So yeah, I'd have to wait and really play with the instructions and see which versions you want to build. And then decals you get are here, the 2 different options, including a little bit of photo etch for some gun deflectors, seat belts, some of the radio intakes on the wings and the wheel covers, as well as your decals. Again, not a lot of stencils included. I get a little annoyed. I expected a bit more of that. You also get a really, really beautiful poster of the box art. That's nice. I'll put that up somewhere probably. I've got a couple of different posters that come like that, but that's a nice touch. So that's going to end up going somewhere at some point. The instructions are quite a large format, to be honest. I'm not used to seeing such a large format set of instructions. But again, it's my first HK model, so I don't know if this is a standard size they use. But anyways, usual history on the model, that same piece of nose art, artwork. And then your usual legalese, caution, and all that stuff. So looking at the actual build, nice instructions, modern looking instructions. Obviously it's a newer kit. You've got your CAD style model showing the different assembly steps. Step 1, you start building the seats and installing them onto the cockpit. It also shows you how to use your photo etch to install the seat belts. Paint callouts are color coded G, A, and if you go to the very back, you'll see here's all the color code out. So G is your dark, dull green. You see all of those different options. Step 2, you're putting the sidewalls on. Step 3, you're assembling bombs and the center catwalk with the bomb bays. Step 4, you're assembling that rear bulkhead and that catwalk and bomb bay into that. On step 5, the rear bulkhead goes into place along with the upper roof. Step 5B, I guess. is the radio operator floor with their radios as well as the bomb base sidewalls. Step 6, you're assembling the rear bulkhead to the radio operator, including the ball turret mount and floor around, and as well the instrument panel and that forward bulkhead also go into place. The instrument panel is a decal. There's not a lot of detail on the instrument panel itself. The decal is what provides all of it. Moving to step 7 is the left-hand fuselage detail, which includes your waist gunner, the little floor, ammo box. You can choose to have the machine gun in 2 different places, either kind of mounted inward in storage or out the opening. I'm a little surprised, I guess, as well, the way they did the windows. They're showing the machine gun closed with the window there, and when the machine gun is open, the little window is out. It's an open hole, which you can see. I don't know if you can make that out on the clear pieces, so I can't really tell. Anyways, this whole opening, it was a doorway that slid inside the fuselage and opened that opening completely up for when they were firing the machine gun. It wasn't just a little panel that opened up. The whole opening was opened up and the panel slid in. So when I build mine, my plan is to have the guns mounted outwards, but I plan to mount that door inside the fuselage the way it normally would be slid inside, just glued into place. When you look in, you can see it mounted on the inside. So that's my plan. I'm going to make sure I get it a little more accurate than it really is. As well, there's no ammo belts, and I might look into getting a couple of ammo belts in 1/48 scale just to see if I can make this look a little bit more realistic in that sense, but it is what it is. Step 8, you're now gluing the fuselage interior into the left-hand side of the fuselage. As well, you're mounting the door closed. Interestingly, there's no detail in the catwalk that leads from the nose under the cockpit up into the cockpit opening. You can see there's the opening here, which is where you go down into the nose, and there's a little catwalk that from here that goes underneath the pilot station and out the hole into the nose. And underneath the pilot's floor, where that little catwalk is, on the left side is the doorway that you climb in, and on the right side with some oxygen tanks. And none of that detail is included in this kit, and the door is supposed to be glued closed. It doesn't give you the option to mount the door open. I haven't done the research, and I will before I edit this video and post it, and I'll put something up about whether the 1/32 scale includes that detail or not. When they shrunk it down, they just didn't include it or not. But either way, none of that detail under the cockpit floor beside that nose door is included. So if you want to open the nose door, you'll have to scratch build all of that detail. But anyways, that's step 8. Step 9, you've got the tail wheel going in as well as the main floor for the gunners. And then step 10, you're doing the same thing with the right-hand side of the fuselage with the little step, the ammo box, the machine guns, and the windows, whether it's open or closed, as well as the door. The crew entry door, open or closed. You get to make that choice now. Yeah, and as well, it shows there's an armor plate, it looks like, that's supposed to go on the machine gun, but it only gets mounted. You can see it better when you go to this side. It shows an armor plate being mounted to the machine gun, but it only gets mounted when the gun's open, not when the gun's closed. And in my mind, it should be mounted no matter which way it is. So anyway, I do a bit of research before you do this, but make sure your research is looking at original World War II aircraft and not modern warbirds. Step 11, you glue the 2 halves of the fuselage together. Step 12, you assemble the tail gunner's area and get it mounted into the fuselage. It actually kind of slides up inside the assembled fuselage. And then step 13, you put together that stinger, the 2 halves and the little end plate, and then the perspex as well as the little gun aimer. All of that gets assembled here at step 13. Step 14, you're starting to work on the upper turtle deck. You install a little plate. Then you decide whether the machine gun is going to be mounted exposed or stored. Again, I probably plan to do mine exposed. When you see here in step 15, you start assembling some of the clear pieces onto this turtle deck, and you choose whether the gun's stored with the perspex in or open with the perspex out. My plan is to mount it out, but I'm going to have the perspex painted and sitting down inside the room the way you normally would. You'd remove the window, store it, pull your machine gun out and use it. And that's what I plan to do. Step 16, you start working on the nose. Again, clear perspex goes in, your frameworks, your machine guns, all your little bits and bobs, all that gets mounted on step 16 and 17. Step 18, you start constructing the nose. Tons of detail going into the nose section. So that all starts in 18. Make sure you drill your holes depending on the version you'll build, and I'll get to that in a second. Step 19, the two halves go together. Step 20, you're starting to assemble some more of the perspex, as the clear windows, as well as some of this little detail around the nose opening. Step 21 and 22 is where you make your choice. 21 is if you're doing the double machine gun in the nose, and step 22 is if you're doing a single machine gun. And this is where you have to pay attention. If you're doing a double machine gun, you'll see there's a mounting point at the top, a mounting point on each side, and then two mounting points at the bottom. And if you're doing that one, you got to drill the holes on the bottom. The single machine gun only gets mounted to the side and to the top, but it's weird because there's two holes, but it only shows it mounting to the central one hole. And I don't quite know how that works. So I'll figure that out when I start building it. But just make sure test fit, test fit, test fit. I do like the fact though that all this framework is sitting inside the cockpit the way it's supposed to be in the nose. It's not just like the Revell one with two machine guns sticking out. It's got all that internal framework. As well, you're doing the pitot tubes and your ADF loop, but just be careful, make sure you're picking the right ones, make sure I would test fit a lot. I would be taping all of this together with the floor in place and getting these frames and seeing how they fit or don't fit or all that kind of stuff before I started mounting everything. So you just gotta make sure you take your time and do it right. Step 23, horizontal stabs, turtle deck, and the nose gets installed. 24, again, it's the same thing. It's just depending on what nose you use. But either way, you assemble all of that. Step 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, all ball turret assembly. It looks like it's going to be an easy assembly, but potentially finicky. So again, I would take your time, make sure you're putting it together nice. Be very careful not to fog up or screw up the clear bits. It's nice that it includes some of the interior detail of the turret. And then everything else gets assembled and it mounted to the internal frame. 31 is top turret, 32 is top turret, and then 33, 34 is tail wheel, depending on whether it's wheels up or wheels down. 35, you're installing the top turret, as well as some of those blast shields around the guns, which is interesting because I felt like, maybe not, I thought you were doing that earlier, but yeah, here you're installing the little blast shields. Those were not really blast shields, they're wind deflectors. So when you had an opening window, the deflector would be out and it would cause the airflow to flow around the window and not flow into the window and freeze everybody that was inside. So that's a photo etch part, and that all gets installed there. Step 36, bomb doors, open or closed. Ball turret, tail wheel, again, up or down. Interestingly, it tells you to put another ADF loop on. And if you go back to here, it shows you putting the ADF loop on the nose, which is where it was on the F. Here you see the ADF loop on the nose, but it's telling you to put another one back here, and that's where the G location was. And I believe that reference for G10 is left over from a G kit, and it's not supposed to be there because all my references don't show two ADF loops. The F was up front. That was the G location and is wrong for an F model, as far as I know. Step 37, you begin the wings. Right wings, you assemble all of the wheel wells. Wheel well goes in. These are your little mounting areas for the engines. They get mounted, wings glue together. 38, you start putting in some of your turbo superchargers. I wouldn't be doing that yet. I'd be painting those and installing them at the very end, but they go in there. Again, it shows you to attach the flaps. Doesn't really give you the option to mount it with the flaps down, but I suspect it is a possibility. Step 39, landing gear, again, up or down, and you also do cowl flaps, engines, cowling, and props all in one shot, as well as a lot of your little details for some of those openings in the wings. And then 40, 41, 42 are just the exact same, but for the left wing. Again, pay attention. You've also got the photo etch for the wheel covers if your version had wheel covers. And again, just make sure you're following the right instructions if you're doing wheels up, wheels down, as well as pay attention to paint order. You know, your cowlings can go on well after the whole kit is finished painting, because you can paint the cowlings separately and mount them on separately at the end. And that also allows you to paint and install all of your turbo superchargers at the end after you've painted them a metallic color and all that other fun stuff, if that's the route you would like to take. Last 43, you're putting the wings on, as well as the upper turret guns and the tail turret guns. You've also got your decal sheet, your parts list. Interestingly, it doesn't show you the parts that aren't used. As I mentioned, it shows there's 3 top turrets, but they don't tell you which ones don't get used in this kit unless you go back and actually look at the instructions. And according to the instructions, you're supposed to use V24 and not 23 or 22. So 23 is for an E model and 22 is for the G model. Yeah, again, like I said, it includes the Astrodome on the clear parts. That's not grayed out. It doesn't even show you the ability to put the Astrodome in place, even though it gives you that little piece over here on sprue P to install the Astrodome. That might come in handy for me with something else, which we'll be getting to in the future. Color callouts. Your first scheme is the famous Memphis Belle. Very accurate for the war. Color is a little off depending on when you wanted to build it. This shows it late in its mission, and you would have had some other, for example, the central tail here, the core of the tail was replaced, so it'd be a slightly different shade of green. But other than that, it's very accurate for your color callouts and your roundels and all that other stuff, and the splotches, which is nice. You can scale this up. You can scan it, scale it up, and get accurate splotches if you want to do that, or just airbrush them or paint them by hand, depending on what you want to do. Option B is, well, I guess we'll go back to option A. So just so you know the actual numbers, it's a B-17F-10 built by Boeing, 41-24485. Code is DFA of the 324th Bomb Squadron, 91st Bomb Group, based in Bassingbourn in May of 1943. Again, I believe May 18th or 19th was when Memphis Belle flew its final mission. So it's very close to that. And then we look at Scheme B, which is, now I don't remember the name of the second one. The second one is Old Faithful, and it is a B-17F-50 BO, so a Boeing-built B-17F-50, slightly later version. Serial number 425360 VKN of the 358th Bomb Squadron, 303rd Bomb Group in Molesworth, UK, late 1943. Again, it's the same olive drab over light gray or medium gray, and yeah, no splotches and everything. So it's an easier scheme to paint if you choose to do that way over that. Again, a couple of little things. First of all, the roundel should be, in my opinion, should be over the code, as the bars were added after the fact, so they tended to paint over the aircraft registration. Look at pictures, because this might be accurate, but in most cases I've seen the bars painted over the squadron codes and not under. Other than that, it is an amazing kit. Last page, as I mentioned before, is just your color callouts. So that is that. A little longer than I expected to take on that. The only other thing I bought was the Kits World B-17 stencils. Tons of stencils. After purchasing this and seeing what's included in this, I might end up buying another one. I bought this for another kit I'm going to be working on, but I think I might buy another one and use one. I might buy another one. Honestly, this is a great set, and it gives me a ton more stencils to really busy up a kit. And I think I might buy a few more to finish off all of my B-17s with it. So it's great. Kits World is amazing. You get a full layout of where all the decals go, and you get tons and tons of details on that. And it's not much. I think it's like $8 or $10. So if you buy a couple of them and amortize out the shipping, it makes getting them to your house relatively inexpensive, and I think it's a great option. So yeah. One more little thing I just added. So that is the end of that. As I mentioned, I will be doing a full review, in-depth review of this kit, looking at all of the sprues in depth and some of the detail. And I will also be doing all my other B-17s together and making one big giant video out of it, so you can all sit down and watch and decide which B-17 you want to buy if you want to start building a B-17 based off of your own preferences. On that note, I'm talked out right now. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then let's take a quick jump and take a look at the status of these kits. So just before we jump over to look at the kits, as I mentioned, there are a few things to look at. And one of them actually has been sitting around the house here for a while. I just haven't actually got around to showing you guys. And it's the new history of the RCAF book that came out, Pathway to the Stars, 100 years of the Royal Canadian Air Force. And this obviously, as the title implies, is part of the 100th anniversary of the RCAF special anniversary year, special year that's happening throughout 2024. So it's one of the ones I wanted to pick up, as I think I've shown before. Now, if I can actually find it, yeah. So I've picked up the RCAF 100th coin. Back in the day, I showed you that. You guys saw that before. So this is also part of the 100th anniversary of the RCAF, part of the program that they're putting out. And this is a really interesting history of the RCAF. First, both covers, sort of front and back, the insides of the covers are the same map, and it shows you all of the current RCAF stations, bases, locations, and a breakdown of all of the different wings and everything else and units that are connected to them. So if you look, for example, you've got CFS Alert. I don't exactly know where CFS Alert falls. Might not be in here because this is more units, whereas this is locations. But you've got Iqaluit as a forward operating location. You've got Goose Bay as a forward operating location. And then anywhere here you see where the blue circle, it's a detached unit. So if you look at, see, Gagetown has 403 Squadron. 403 Squadron is technically part of one wing based in Kingston, but the unit is detached to Gagetown. 400 at Borden, 408 at Edmonton, 427 in Petawawa, 430 in Balcarce, 438 in St. Hubert, and 450 in Petawawa. So those are all of your tactical helicopter units. So they're all part of one wing base at Kingston, but they are located throughout Canada. And you can go through and see all the different bases, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 12, 14, 19, 22 wing, and you've also got 15, 16, and 17. So those are all of the upper structures, including all of the squadrons that are assigned to them. Very interesting, just being able to look at that. And I used to have a poster for this back in the day, but that poster dated back to the late 90s, early 2000s. So this is a nice modern look at where everything is located. But you can see, for example, in Trenton, they've got 412 with the Challengers based in Ottawa, 424 with the Griffins, Hercules, and 295s. 426 with the Hercules and Polaris. They're the training squadron. That will also include the CC-330 when it rolls out, which is not included in this. 429 with the Globemaster, 436 with the J, 437 with the Polaris, which also has the CC-330 Husky, 440 with the Twin Otters, which is located in Yellowknife, and then you've got all the other, there's where Canadian Forces Station Alert falls under. Multi-engine utility flight with the King Air 350s, as well. Just literally as I'm filming this just a few days ago, they noticed that their first search and rescue, ISR intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance King Airs, the new crazy reconnaissance spying King Airs that we bought, have shown up. So I don't know what unit they're attached to, but anyways, moving on. The book itself more or less falls in a chronological history of the Air Force. So you can see the origins, Crucible of War, which was World War II, Cold War deterrent, unification, then expeditionary operations, search and rescue, RCAF today and tomorrow, and reflecting on the impact of the RCAF. So it kind of goes through, as I said, historically, there's the first part of it where it shows, and it's not a novel per se. It's broken down into little kind of sections, right? So you've got the Silver Dart, you've got Billy Bishop, you've got the history of the Newport, you've got William Barker. So you're talking about World War I, but you're doing it with these little kind of mini stories and articles. So you can pick and choose what you want to read. You don't have to read the book front to back. It's not like a treatise or anything. You just read the sections you want to read, right? So here you've got the National Research Council and the RCAF, Defining a New Age, Pioneers of the into War, area photography, then chapter 2, which is World War II. So this is just a brief history of them in the war. And again, you've got all of these little stories, Fleet Finch, the Spitfire, BCATP, Battle of Britain, the Hurricane, Elsie McGill, who was the Hurricane, the engineer, the first female aircraft engineer in Canada who helped devise the Hurricane. Alan Bundy, one of the first colored or Yeah, colored, I guess. Can't really call him an African American as he was in Canada, but anyways, visible minority that made it into World War II and got his wings. And then James Stocky Edwards, who I've actually had the pleasure of meeting, Buzz Burling. You're seeing all of these stories that just tell little snippets of the history and little tiny blurbs, and you can really get a feel for it and go through. So you've got World War II. There's the Carty brothers, Leonard Burchell. So you go through and there's all of these little kind of the air cadets, which started in World War II, and then you go into Cold War, right? You start learning about Operation Leapfrog, which I have a video on. You start looking at, again, people, places, aircraft, stories. You just can put it all together and really get a good feel for what, the history of the RCAF is. So you move into the CF-104, NORAD, there's NRC, which the hangar still exists, the Avro Aero, moving on to anti-submarine, Sea King, all the different wings. And you go into unification, so post-1968, some of the people that was instrumental in that, the CF-18, air-to-air refueling, right? You go through the Hercules. There's a whole lot of these little stories, the history of the Tartan, the history of the Ensign, the history of the Roundel. Then you go into expeditionary operations. So these are all the times that we've based aircraft overseas. For example, First Gulf War, Rwanda, Kosovo. Afghanistan. Well, that's United Arab Emirates, but I believe it's Afghanistan. There's Afghanistan, right? ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Operation in Libya. All right, so you have all of these little stories. Then you got search and rescue, the history of search and rescue in Canada and all the different aircraft we use and how we've Operation Box Top, which was, a very pivotal moment in aircraft search and rescue in Canada, 442. Then you go into today and tomorrow and you start seeing the future of where the RCAF is going. Kind of where Billy Flynn, for example, flying the F-35 with Lockheed Martin. Again, I've met him before, really cool guy. Aerobatic teams, we talk about the Golden Hawks, the Siskins, the Golden Centenniers, moving through the Snowbirds. So you go through this whole history. It's Chris Hadfield, Space, Jeremy Hansen, the RCAF band. Like, it covers every single aspect. And then reflecting on the impact, how Canadian aviation impacted the world globally, right? World War I, Vimy Ridge, Bomber Command Memorial, all the different, histories around the world. And then you get into the appendices, which are list of aircraft, people, yada, yada, yada. So it's a great reference, if you're ever looking for a specific piece of history. It's about, I think, $39.95 is what it goes for. I think it's a great piece of history. I have no idea where I'm actually going to put it. I might take this to my office and put this on display in my office at work, a coffee table book kind of thing. So it's a really, really interesting book, and honestly, for the $40, it's worth picking up. Great little memento of the 100th anniversary, and again, having that story of being able to go through and read all those little anecdotal stories of the history and everything else. I think it's a great asset to have. Hopefully they keep it in print for a while and it's not just a one-off print and then it disappears. This is the kind of book that you want people, 10, 15 years from now to be able to pick up in a store and read through. So very, very cool to have that. I do have another kit to show you. Unfortunately, I don't actually have it at the house right now, so I'm going to grab that at some point, and I will have a little intro for that done before we hop over to the status of the kits. So let's jump over and take a quick look at that new kit. So as promised, here we are taking a look at some new products before we jump over to the progress of the kits. And a bit of a backstory on these next two products. So if you remember last month, I did the review on the Hong Kong models 148 scale B-17F. And just as an FYI, there will be a mega review coming out probably, I think, in the next week or two on this channel of all 4 148 scale B-17 kits I have. So keep your eye out on that if you're interested. But one of the things I noticed looking at that kit was that in the 148 scale, there's no ammo belts. The 132nd scale kit has ammo belts, the 148th does not. And on the F model, with the open radio gunner position, the open waist gunner positions, and especially with those 50 cal sitting in the nose, lack of an ammo belt is very noticeable. So I looked around, and that's when I realized the 132nd kit had it. But for whatever reason, they didn't scale that down to the 148th kit. So I was trying to figure out where am I going to get some 148 scale 50 caliber ammo belts. And I took a look around things like Edward Photo Etch and whatnot, and Sprue Brothers and that kind of stuff, and Squadron, and local things that I could order from. And I couldn't really find anything in 148. Lots of 135 and 132nd, but not much in 148th. And then I remembered, excuse me for that. I remembered, now, not only am I a creator for YouTube content, I am a user of YouTube content. I watch a lot of YouTube videos and different channels, and one of the channels I watch, especially when I'm sitting here at the desk working on stuff, is Nigel's Modeling Desk. And if you haven't checked out his channel, I highly recommend it. That man has more knowledge on model building than I've probably forgotten in my life. But he was doing his Hong Kong models 132nd scale 820, and in that he was looking at gas patch models 50 caliber belts, one of the items he had purchased for that. So I ended up going over to gas patch models to see, hey, do they make one in 148? And they do. So these are gas patch models. I'll put a review down below. So not a review, a link down below to their website if you want to go check these out for yourself. So these are 3D printed. I'll zoom in a little bit. Very beautifully packaged, by the way. A nice little piece of foam to protect it. And their usual insert. But I'm just going to zoom in here so you can take a look at what these look like. So it's a coiled up piece of 3D printed 50 caliber belts. So I'm assuming they probably just break off. I don't want to do anything. I'm afraid of breaking it, but I'm guessing if you just took an X-Acto knife and slid it across the bottom, you would start to uncoil this. And I mean, I don't need a whole lot. You only need a small little section for, say, a waist gun or a radio operator gun. So I should be able to do more than enough of my 148 scale HK B17. I probably have leftovers for some other kits I'm working on. But anyways, they look beautifully well done. Yeah, you can clearly see. I don't know if this is going to show up on camera. Now I'm completely out of focus. Focus. Come on, boy. There we go. You can just make out, again, I'm not sure how well this comes up on camera here, but right about here, there's kind of a seam line where the 50 cal ends, and there's a little tiny attach point. So it looks like you just kind of cut across with an X-Acto knife on that point, and then you can just snip it down the middle where you want it and use whatever length you want. But I think for the price, now the price wasn't horrible. I think it was about €8. So not really that bad for what you get and for what the enhancements it does on the kit. The big issue with like anything when you're ordering this stuff, now I honestly do not remember where gas patch is from. It's one of the Eastern countries. It honestly doesn't say on here, but it's one of the Eastern European countries, like the Czech Republic or something like that. See if I can find anything that has a manufactured in comment. No, I'd have to do a lookup online. But anyways, it comes from one of the Eastern European countries. But either way, the hardest part about ordering this kind of stuff, especially from Europe, is shipping. Shipping to Canada sucks. It's just expensive. So normally when I end up ordering something from Europe, I tend to order a bunch of other stuff that makes the shipping worth it. So this was only €8, but with the shipping, it was significantly more expensive. And so I was like, well, was there anything else I can buy that will amortize out the shipping cost? And for only a slight increase in shipping costs, I was also able to order this, which is a complete and utter impulse buy. Yeah. Kind of feel bad for ordering it because the model itself was a little expensive, but the shipping for this and this combined was almost the same as what the shipping would have been just for this. So considering I really wanted one of these anyways, it was worth it to get it all at the same time. So obviously this is the 163 Messerschmitt ME163 Comet. Come beautifully boxed, by the way. Just, I can't tell you how amazing this box is. The printing is beautiful. It's this flat color product made in Greece. There we go. Gas patch models is from Greece. Yeah, so I mean, it's a little big for what you get. There's a little bit kind of extra plastic in here. I should say extra space in the box for the size of the kit. You can tell, let me just get this closed here. You could fit this in a significantly smaller box. My guess is they're just making standard size boxes and they just make it fit as they go. Let me clean some of this up. So yeah, this is the 148 scale ME163. Again, I've got a couple of German aircraft over there, including the HE-162, and this is kind of a nice addition to that whenever I get it completed. You got the usual advertisement for some of the other kits. A lot of their other kits are earlier, the Henschel 123, and then some early biplanes. And then they make this kit. Now, the other thing is it also includes the cart that they use to pull the plane around as well as lift it after it landed on the ground. That would be a really cool addition to have, but it in and of itself is more expensive than this base kit. So, you know, you gotta be prepared to spend a bit of money to go down that road, and I was not willing to spend that kind of money. So I did not. Anyways, the kit itself, I'm not gonna open the bags. The bags are sealed quite nicely, and I don't wanna break that seal right now. But the kit is just beautifully molded. There's lots of interior detail for such a small kit. I mean, you're looking at 4 sprues plus a clear sprue for what is just a tiny little kit. So there's tons of detail, and we'll go through the instructions and I'll show you all the extra detail that they have added. But just looking at this, this is sprue, is it a numbered sprue? Sprue C. You've got the 2 fuselage halves, the nose cone. This is, I'm assuming, these are the 2 covers for where the fuel tanks would be. And then you got a whole lot of other little details here. The rudder, ailerons or elevators or flaps, the leading edge slats, some antennas, some bits and bobs, a little propeller for the nose, which runs a generator. I'm assuming these have something to do with the wings, but I don't know. And then we'll go on over here. We'll look at sprue. What sprue are you? Sprue B, have the wings. So you've got upper and lower wings for both sides. And clearly, yeah, it looks like there's some sort of flap on the bottom. I really have to look into this. I haven't done much looking through this kit yet. You've also got an opening for where the wing cannons are mounted, so it looks like you can have those exposed. So yeah, quite a bit going on here. I don't even know what those little things are, little intakes of some form. And then we'll look over here at sprue E. E has a lot of the internal detail. You've got your cockpit. I'm assuming these are the tops of the fuel tanks that go in the fuselage. Ammo belts, some more little bits and bobs, instrument panel, frames of some sort. Looks like parts of the seat, the cannons, all of the pieces that go with the cannons. Some more ammo belts over here, more cannon parts, the control stick, control surfaces of some sort. There's a lot going on with this kit for such a small little kit. And then we'll finish up over here with sprue. Does this have a number? Sprue D. And in sprue D, you've got a lot of the undercarriage parts. So you've got your skid, which you can mount up or down. You've got your wheels for the trolley, because the wheels were on a dolly, I should say. So as the aircraft lifted off the ground, the dolly was dropped and the aircraft flew. And then when it came back into land, it landed on a skid, which is why it needed that mechanism from that other kit to lift it up and carry it around. But you also include the tail wheel halves, which are both like extended and retracted. And I don't know what those are for, but that's part of your dolly. More bits and pieces. Again, I haven't looked at the instructions on this at all, so I have no idea what the vast majority of these parts are for. But it looks like a really cool kit. And then looking over here, we got some cockpit parts. You've got the actual windscreen, the windows that go in kind of behind the pilot, and then a bulkhead, which I'm assuming is behind the pilot, so it must have an armor plate that fits behind the pilot with the cutout so we can look back over his shoulder and out those little windows. I think this is the armored glass that goes in the forward part of the windscreen to protect them from forward fire. And you've got the gun sight. And again, beautifully molded. There's very little distortion through that canopy. It's crystal clear. I can't say enough about this, really. I hope these guys continue to make kits and don't end up and going out of business or anything, because these are great. There's also these little 3D printed, which also you can see the similarities between how they printed these ammo belts and this little part. This, I know, has to do with aligning the cannons in the kit. So we'll take a quick look at the instructions, and then we'll finish up looking at the decals. Beautiful instructions. You can see it kind of comes on a standard size page that gets folded in half. So is that 3.5? 8.5 by 11 is like 5 by 4 or whatever it is size page. To be perfectly honest, it's probably a European standard, not an American standard, but yeah, it's a 6.5 by 9, which is 16 by 23 centimeters. So it's probably that's probably a European standard A sheet of some form that is printed and cut versus having custom size paper made. But the instructions are beautiful, nice color, a deep color. It's not like a faded light ink. They put a lot of effort and money into making this a nice deep color instructions. So that's really nice to see. It starts off, you've got the layout of everything, your decal sheets, your photo etch, as well as all your sprues and the other bits. And you know what? I think I'm missing, unless I'm, yeah. Huh. I'll have to take a look at those instructions, because in here it says there's a 3D printed resin part, and I don't think I have those 3D resin parts in my kit. Interesting. We'll have to see what those are and if they're replaceable with plastic parts or not. Anyways, we start over here with building in the cockpit, and you see that's that clear, yeah, you can see right here, there's a clear little windows on either side. So instead of having an insert made, they made that entire piece as a clear part that you then, there's some photo etch that goes on here for the seat frame, and you mask off those little windows and paint the whole thing. You can see how the seat halves go together and your seat belts are installed. Yeah, there's even a little plastic piece that goes across the seat and locks the seat belts in place, which is a nice touch. And then you can see how the seat and the headrest get glued on. It even shows you the color callouts for the seats. And here you can kind of see the completed part all assembled and painted in color again, which is nice. It's not just a CAD image. It looks like that. It looks like that's a picture of the actual kit part, not just a CAD image. So that's nice to see. And then moving over here into step 2, we work on the tub. So you see the rudder pedals going in, and there's some photo etch straps for the rudder pedals. The seats getting put in place. The control stick gets put in place, and then here that rear bulkhead with the seat. And there's also some piping, as these on either side of the cockpit, these are actually the part of the fuel tanks. So you can actually see some of the piping that runs from the fuel tanks back to the rear engine through that piece. And again, it looks like these are pictures of an actual kit part assembled, which is a nice touch. So you can really see kind of the look they're going for when you are doing this. Over here in step 3, we're doing some of the interior fuselage detail. You see some of these controls on the side, some levers going in. I think this is part of the underneath the fuselage where the skid fits into place. Looks like that's interior detail in there. And you've got the other side. You've even got an oxygen hose that's included as a piece. Really amazing how much detail is included. And these are not actual pictures. These are color CAD images of the parts. But still shows you a nice color image of the callouts and what each one should be. And there's some decals that go in here and everything else. Then you got the instrument panel that gets built up. There's actual photo etch and pieces that get glued onto the instrument panel. And again, there's some decals. Every instrument seems to have its own decal, as well as some of the colors, so you know which way to paint everything. Over here, step 6, this is part of the ammo. You can see how you actually glue the ammo belts into the ammo boxes, paint them up, everything else. Oh my God. This is going to be a fun fun kit to build, to be honest. There's so much detail. I feel like it's going to get pretty finicky at times, but it looks really amazing. So here is step 7. You're doing the landing skid. So you can see how if the landing skid is to be deployed, you have all of this mechanism, the hydraulic kind of worm screw mechanism that extends and retracts it all. That all gets assembled, or you leave it off if it's to be retracted. I'm probably going to extend mine just to add that detail to it. Step 8, you glue the fuselage halves together. That includes the exhausts. Looks like there's some hinge pieces that get glued in. The upper floor of the skid well, as well as that upper fuselage part where the ammo trays are, and the cockpit itself all gets glued into the right fuselage half. Instrument panel goes in. There's another piece of PE that goes in there and covers layers on top of previous pieces. And then here you install the skid if it's going to be extended. And there's also a piece of photo etch that goes in there as a bracket. Man, the level of detail on this kit. I've said that a few times, but this is just amazing. Then over here, you assemble the other half of the fuselage together. And then there's a bottom piece that goes on to hide the lower seam line. It does even say to remove the seam lines. There's a couple of places where it does specifically say remove seam lines. Make sure you get it clean. Step 9, you're assembling it says machine guns. I guess they're more 20mm cannons or even 30mm cannons, I think. But anyways, you're assembling those. You can see all the different brackets that get installed. And then here's where it says to use the resin jig for better alignment. So you can see you do not glue these forward brackets on. And then you use this piece to align everything together. And then you slide it through. And you can see here how those jigs help get the machine gun angles aligned properly. And then you can glue everything in and hold it all in place. And then after that is done, you can remove the jigs and start adding all the rest of the pieces, including more of the ammo belts. And then moving over here, you've got some PE that goes in around the machine guns. There's some parts here. Yeah, okay, here you go. See, so the PE only goes down the left side of the fuselage. The right side of the fuselage does not have the PE. And then you also have the clear parts that go in place, and there are maskings included, which I'll show later. And it does say if you want to open or close the panel, so you can choose to open or close the panels. Like I said, I'll probably have mine open. And then moving on to the wings here, you assemble the wings. You can see the ailerons and the flaps get installed. They say not to glue them, so apparently they are posable, which is cool. And then they go on, and you can see how the space, the openings there on the upper part, like I said, expose the cannons if you choose to expose the cannons. There's some underwing, it looks like speed brakes or flaps. I'd have to look into how these control surfaces work. But there's some other flaps under here as well. These must be elevators. You must have ailerons, elevators, and then flaps that are mounted underneath. But anyways, you have your flaps, which can be extended or retracted, depending on how you want to do it. And then you go to tail wheel assembly. And as I stated, there's tail wheel with a fairing and without fairings, and tail wheels extended or retracted for both options. You get 4 separate ways of building the tail wheel: with fairing retracted, with fairing extended, or without fairing without. So you can kind of do some research and see which one fits with what version you're doing. Moving on to step 12, you're doing the dolly. Okay, we have rounded tires and weighted tires. That's why there were so many tires in the box. Also, you've got some decals, some painting guides. The dolly, as I said, the dolly fits onto the bottom of the skid. Here you mount the doors if you want them open or closed. There's also a PE part that goes in around the rocket exhaust. As I said, there's that armored glass that goes in the forward part of the windscreen, and you use the provided masks to fill that in. See here, it says use provided resin part. That's the resin part that I don't have. So I'll have to do some research on that. Anyways, and there's some other parts that go in here, some sort of an instrument that, the compass, including a decal for the compass face. Man, there's a lot of detail in this. That gets installed. There's some PE parts that go in there in the frame. Everything gets painted together. There's some PE handles that go inside the windows, and then there's all the masking that goes onto the windows. And then at the final step, the cockpit gets mounted, open or closed. You've got your lights, some other stuff. There's a lot. This is a very detailed kit. I have a feeling it's gonna get very, very finicky. We move on now to the building guides. I apologize, my phone does not want to stop going off today. The decal and painting guides, lots of stencil decals and everything, and I believe there's 6 scheme options. Yeah, 6 potential schemes, all for late war or post-war schemes. So this one is work number 191916 in Brandis, April 1945. Standard German kind of camo with the malted tail and the yellow on the nose. Here we've got 191659, very similar to the previous one, same yellow nose and everything. Option 3 does not have a work number for it, and it has a very different camo pattern with a highly modeled fuselage with standard wings. So that would take quite a bit of effort to paint that type of molded camo in a 1/48 scale. That's a lot of work, but it looks cool. Option 4, work number 191477, spring of 1945. I believe these are all 1945 schemes. Again, very similar to the previous numbers 1 and 2 with the highly angled splinter camo and the malted tail. Over here, work number 310061. Same scheme as here, although we now see it done up in post-war French markings, including the sprayed out swastika. You'll also notice they don't show the swastika, and that's to fit with a lot of European laws that it's actually illegal to show a swastika. So swastikas are not shown on the box art. It's not shown in the instructions, and the decals are separate pieces that you have to put together, which I'll show you soon. And that's just to conform to some of the European laws. But either way, you see it's been painted out on this version, and the German markings are painted out, over-painted with the French markings. So that would be pretty cool to recreate if you wanted to go down that road. And then finally, you've got this one here, which was captured and brought to England. And again, it's in a late war, the splinter camo on the wings with kind of a molted fuselage camo. And you can see they painted out the tail with the German markings and over-painted a bunch of the other markings and painted the British markings on top. So pretty cool options for schemes. One of them, I believe it's the first one, either the first one or the second one. I can't remember exactly which one. I think it's the second one. One of these two options, either one or two, is the one that currently exists at the Aviation Museum here in Canada, in Ottawa, and that is the version I plan on doing, because it is the same one that we have here in the museum, and it's pretty cool. So that's what I plan on doing. So that's the instructions. Again, really easy to follow, lots of detail. Considering how much there are in the kit, this instructions, I'm very impressed. It's easy to see what's what was built before, what's the next part, what you have to focus on. There's a lot going on, but it's still very easy to follow and ensure that you don't get too overwhelmed with the kit. My only real concern, and I'm coming back to this page because I was trying to figure it out earlier, is where that goes on. I'm assuming we're looking at the forward section here, and these little pieces go on up here, but it's a little hard to figure out. So I'll have to wait till we start building to really see that. But no, it's a really cool kit. I'm very, very impressed with the instruction manual. How easy, like I said, how easy it is to follow and everything. We have now looking at the decals. These luckily are just a resealable package, so I can take them out. So here you can see how the swastikas come in a separate half and you have to put them together. And then here are the main decals with all of the German markings, the British markings, the French markings, all of your standard numbers. Here are all your instrument panel instruments and some of the other stuff. There are late war swastikas that are split in half still. All your stencils, some more details, lots and lots going on. Here's the photo etch with the flaps and some of your handles and bits. It's interesting. That part. Yeah, see, if you look at in the instructions, it says that there's this 3D printed resin part, which I don't have in my box as far as I can tell. But over here on the photo etch, it tells you to not use that piece of photo etch and that piece of photo etch makes that piece that is supposed to come as a 3D printed part. So that answers that. I can just use the photo etch to create that part, which is what I'll end up having to do, because as far as I can tell, I never received that 3D printed part. And then here are your masks, which, yeah, it looks like just a sheet of cut vinyl, but it works. All your masks are there. So you can do what you need to do to get that to work. And as I said, your photo etch. Oh, you know what? It's right there. Look at that. The 3D printed part that I thought was missing is included inside the bag of photo etch. So I am safe. So yeah, that is the Gas Patch ME163. I will be doing a much more in-depth review of this, including opening the bags and looking at all of the plastic and getting you right in close to some of those details. But I won't be doing that until I get around to building the kit. I cannot promise you when that will be, but at some point I will do a very in-depth review of this kit. This is just a quick surface level look. If you would like me to do that review a little sooner, by all means, let me know. I can always move things up in the plan. But that gets through the new products I got. Next, we'll take a quick look over at the progress on all of the kits. So let's take a look at what I managed to get done in the past month. So here we are at the desk to take a look at the status of the builds for these 4 kits. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, I completely lost track of the days, and February being a shorter month completely threw me for a loop. And I'm currently actually filming this on March 1st. So this is going to be one of the most accurate status videos we've ever seen. Usually I film these a few days, if not maybe a week in advance, depending on timing. So we'll start with the F82E, and I'm currently in the middle of the, currently in the middle of the decal stage for this kit. Oh, come on. There we go. So, yeah, decal stage. So, I mean, it's painted, it's gloss coated, all the little bits and bobs are done, and I'm working on decals. Now, that actually went together really well so far. I'm very impressed with Caracal decals. And how can you not be impressed with Caracal decals? They are super, super easy to use, and a great, great company. So, the white painted on, the blue border is the decals. They come with a couple of strips, and they pretty much exactly how much you need. There's a little bit of touch up I'll need to do here around the front, where they kind of wrap around and don't go perfectly. Obviously they come down and wrap on a bit of an angle due to curvature. So I'm gonna have to come in here and clean that up a little bit with some paint. And otherwise it's great. I haven't done a lot other than the blue stripes, which took quite a bit of time. Just got the upper wings and the one national insignia to go on, and still have all the other little details to do. And then we move right along with that. So getting a lot closer with this. Again, this is the one that's going to be on the stand. So we mounted up on a stand, cockpit's closed, all that fun stuff. So it's coming along. It looks good. Very excited to get past the decal stage and start pulling masking and doing all the other little things to start finishing that kit off. The other F82, the G, is actually completed the decals. So it's actually completely finished with decals. It's just waiting for me to finish the other ones. So again, I can move to that next step. So once I'm done the 82, and I'll be working on this two at the same time, gloss coat these decals, just make sure they get sealed down. Then I can go ahead and do exhaust staining. And then this one's gonna get a flat coat. I think I'll do the other one in either high gloss or semi-gloss. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, the next step for both of these are gonna be some exhaust staining. And then this will get a flat coat after that. And then once the flat coat's done, I can start pulling the masking off, the cockpit canopy masking, all that stuff, get the landing gear glued in, and move on to that next step, which is exciting. So that is the F82G. Try not to knock other stuff over. And then the Mosquito, again, it's pretty much the same as the F82G. It is, decals are finished. To me, decals are hit and miss. Sometimes I've had issues with them, with the decal setter. Sometimes they kind of crackle and craze. These ones went down really, really nice, especially if you look in here. These sort of warning decals, all of the Couple of bubbles actually. Anyways, all of these central areas are all actual decal. Where's my little black pen? There it is. They're all actual like clear decal film. They're not cut out or anything. So the fact that they settled as nice as they did over such a large area and the decal film stayed so relatively clear, I literally, just as we were talking, noticed a couple of these little bubbles that have formed. So I'm just going to hit it with one more little bit of decal setter and hopefully those settle down. But yeah, it's the decals went together. I'm so hesitant when I do Tamiya decals because you just never know how they're going to go down. But they went down really nicely on this one. You'll see here, especially along here, where the roundel and the shape and the letters have to wrap around this little bump. They did get some cracking inside the crack where the decals just pulled apart. They just couldn't stretch enough. I'm gonna live with it. You're gonna have some weathering on the real plane, so I'm just gonna take that as you know what, it probably would have weathered there in the real plane, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Landing gear are just temporarily put in place just so the plane would look nice sitting on the ground, the desk. They're not glued in or anything, so there's no worry there. But I still have to put those oil tanks on those gears. But yeah, we're starting to get close. Same thing with that. Once I get these decals, once I get the other decals done, I can and get a coat of Future, seal those decals down, do some exhaust staining, and then yeah, flat coat, and I can start pulling masking and moving on to the next step, getting the final stages done. So Mosquito's looking really good. I'm happy with it. I love coming down and seeing it sitting on the shelf. It looks so cool sitting on the shelf. It's funny, every so often I look at it, it just, from a split second, I think Beaufighter, and then I have to remember, no, it's a Mosquito, because I'm so not used to seeing a Mosquito in the Night Fighter colors. But it's gonna look really, really nice when it's finished, especially with the other bomber version I have. The gun, the nose, when we open the ladder on the side, the door, all that stuff, once it's in place, it's just really gonna make this thing look really good. So I'm excited to see that. Now moving on to the Lincoln. Yeah, I had a bit of an oopsie with the Lincoln. I was showing my wife kind of where we were on the stage of the process, and I dropped it, and it went more or less like this, and it just went whack and hit the ground from about a foot and a half, 2 foot high, smacked the ground, broke this seam here where the rear extension is connected to the forward fuselage. It was still connected at the top, so it had like a hinge action going on, but that popped. The forward bomb aimer's perspex popped off, the chin piece popped off, and there was a whole bunch of pieces rattling around inside the cockpit. So I went ahead and glued this back in place before it moved around and broke off too much. I had to pop this canopy off and get in there, and most of the navigator's table and detailing back in here had popped out. So I just ripped it out. It's sitting down in the box down there. There's no way, the only way to really get all that glued back into place would have been to pop the seams top and bottom on this thing. And I really wasn't looking forward to that as well. Look, this bomb bay, which is the floor of the cockpit, it had partially separated, but I would have had to have completely separated that in order to get the fuselage halves, and plus this nose plug would have had to be popped off in order to split the halves. So I said, you know what, it was too much. So I'm gonna go without having the navigator's table in place in there. I'm hopeful you're not gonna see much down in there once it's all completed, but that is what it is. Now I also ended up, because this bomb bay floor, roof, whatever you want it, the cockpit floor bomb bay roof piece had separated. I have a seam in here again I gotta clean. I'm gonna use a little bit more Mr. Surfacer to seal that up just like I did before. I also made the executive decision to glue the bomb bay doors in place. I really didn't wanna do that on this kit. I was looking forward to having it exposed, but I needed that strength. I just wanted to make sure that this has as much strength as possible in it. So the gluing this in place, super glue and some baking powder across the sides is just gonna lock all that in place and make sure that everything is connected to everything else. I still have to go through and clean all that up, sand it all down, and fill in the gaps and just clean it all up. But it is what it is. I'm not totally happy with it, but I'm also it's less work. That bomb bay had a ton of photo etch in it, and I wasn't looking forward to going back and trying to redo 10-year-old photo etch. So it is what it is. It's still gonna look imposing sitting on the shelf with with everything else, the big wings and the gear down and all that other stuff. I'm still going to have the rear door open, so that's at least going to be there. You can look inside the rear fuselage and you'll be able to see inside the cockpit and inside the nose. And anyways, it's not perfect, but I will live with it. Price you pay for making mistakes. Anyways, so this has kind of been sitting for about a week now. Just, I haven't had the nerve to touch it. I will soon though, especially while I've been decaling. I didn't want to sand and get dust everything on here while I'm actively decaling. So once I finish the decaling on that F-82 and I get all those decals sealed and I move on to weathering and painting, then I can start poking this out and sanding it. I was basically at the point, I actually had gone out and bought a new scriber, specifically knowing I haven't used this yet. I had literally planned to start scribing this, like, that's why I bought this. I was ready to come in and start scribing, and then, immediately I drop this thing on the ground and smack it, and I'm back to square one. But I went out and bought this scriber. Before, I've usually just been using a pin and a pin vise, whereas this is going to allow me to come through and rescribe all of these lines. So once I get some Dymo tape, yeah, that's nice. That's actually really, really nice. Once I get some Dymo tape and I can start marking some vertical lines in here, then I can go through and do the horizontal lines and just rescribe all of this. I'm going to try to carry this really tight pattern back down the forward fuselage the way it is. Then this rear fuselage will be mostly horizontal lines with a few vertical lines. And the wings, I'm just going to kind of make it up as I go. But yeah, this is going to make scribing so much easier. I'm looking forward to going through and cleaning this up and getting it. It's starting to get a little large and unwieldy, which was one of my fears was something this big, is that working in here would not be. Yeah, I need Dymo tape. I don't want to ruin this by trying to do it by hand, but yeah. But yeah, no, it's gonna look good. I'm happy. My next step, once I clean this up down here, my next step is literally just gonna be scribing, get the scribing done, and then I can focus on cleaning it up and putty and getting ready for primer. And same with the wings, finish those off. I think that accident was a little bit of a happy accident, because it's made me realize that, like, I can't have a fully detailed bomb bay, and now you're missing some interior cockpit details. So why am I going to spend all the time and effort to super detail something if other areas of the kit are not going to be super detailed? So I've kind of got to the point that I'm literally just going to build it as a 3-foot model. As long as it looks good from 3 feet away, I'm happy. It's taken a bit of pressure off myself in the terms of the needs to make sure it's perfect, and taking that next step was always a challenge, because, well, what if I don't do it good enough? What if it's not good enough? Well, you know what? It doesn't matter anymore. It's just, as long as I get it finished, I'll be happy. So I'm going to forget that. I'm just going to take the leap and get it done and fix the problems as I go, and it's going to be what it's going to be. So that's that. In terms of what's coming up on the channel here in the next month, I'm still going to try to get the monthly news video out, hopefully in the next couple of days. Get that done up and published. I've got the next RCAF history video out. I have a few more model review kits coming out. I have a couple more Airshow London videos coming out. And then once that's done, just going forward in the next couple of months, I'm also going to go through some of the Airshow Aero Gatineau videos I have, doing specific performers, making those videos so you can track by performer if you felt like it. Yeah, we're getting close to getting through that, and then yeah, we're getting a little close on these models. So I suspect in the next couple of months I'll probably end up starting the next kits. I have 3 kits plus the Lincoln. So I have 3 new kits I'll be starting, plus finishing off the Lincoln, like I just said, coming up in the next couple of months. So there's still some content coming out, and then it's just, it's a hop, skip, and a jump. It's the end of June. Is only March, April, May. It's only 4 months until Trenton Air Show. July 1 is the big mass flyover here in Ottawa. Still haven't seen some details on that. So we're gonna have some more content coming out here in a couple of months. So I have lots of time to get through it. So I'm kind of mumbling here. So let's just wrap this up. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you the next time.